very much for coming today. I think I said last year, but it's always wonderful how it's kind of organic. We really don't even need to put a notice up that people just know. It's become custom and practice now to be here on the 15th of April at this time, and I think that's a testimony to you all that this happens. Today, as is custom and practice, we're going to read out the names of those who were unlawfully killed on the 15th of April, 36 years ago. We will observe a minute's silence, and really that's it, because we all have our own things to do, what we want to do, whether it's be on your own, be with other people. When you just say that, I know a lot after the after this, a lot of people very often will go to the pub and have a drink and sit talking. Taggy has contacted me last night and very kindly offered that if people want to go to Reds in Exchange Street East, I actually don't know it, but other people here do. Apparently it's quite a sizable venue, and they very kindly put on food for everyone if people want to go there afterwards. And I think the plus is it's quite spacious, so you can all, you know, sit, have a drink, whatever. I know there's a gang of us always congregate in the Lion as well, and in the Ship and Mitre, and some of us manage to do all of them as well. So it's just nice. It's nice that people stay together afterwards, and anyone who's on their own, don't feel that you will be on your own, because people will talk and people are friendly. So just very briefly, I just wanted to say that obviously Hillsborough law and what's happened is in the news this last 2 weeks, and I know that people are very disappointed and let down. I kind of take a different approach from it. Did you really think you were going to get something that Keir Starmer had promised you? The man is a liar. He's corrupt. He came to this city and told you that he would not be involved with the Sun. A short time later, he's writing for them, as are several other Labour MPs. So, you know, you can't afford to be naive. This is a man who, in charge of the country, is in charge and participating in a genocide in Palestine. The man is authorising British planes, the RAF, to be sent from Cyprus on a regular basis to fly over Gaza to report back to the Israelis where the Palestinians are, to kill them. And as you've all seen, you're not talking about 100 or 200, you are talking multiples of thousands. Kids mutilated, killed. God love those who will survive, if any survive, because they will be traumatized for life. So this is the caliber of the man, and it got me thinking about what is justice. Everybody's saying Hillsborough law now. Well, I've always said there shouldn't be a Hillsborough law, because if the government and the state was honest, it wouldn't be needed, because there should be a system in place. Public servants are accountable to us, the police are accountable to us. They should tell the truth. And the fact that what you've got to fight for is a different layer of legislation to force them to do that doesn't say much about the calibre. I'm sorry about the feedback from this. John Mack. What I think is we create our own justice. We will never get justice from a corrupt state. The British government is corrupt, and there is no British justice. A few of us here constantly say that. So you're not going to get justice. But what you can do is create your own justice. And this is what I've been thinking of. How do you do that? Well, we did it with Hillsborough, because we'd have never got anywhere if we'd have played by the rules. And I was thinking yesterday and today of John Glover, Dave Church, Terry Burkett, Steve Wright, and I've missed people out, and I knew I'd do that. The Tootles, Joan and Peter Tootle, the Glovers, families who were brave enough to stand apart from the main group, let's be honest about it, put themselves on the outside, on the edge, and fight. And people didn't want them to do that, let's remember that. And they were prepared when there was no cases, there was no lawyers involved, no lawyers wanted to touch us, but they were prepared to say, no, this is wrong and we're not giving up. And it's sad that very few are still here of those that I'd mentioned. Sorry, I left Anne Williams. And you don't hear of those names, with the exception of Anne, who Anne will be talked about, and rightly so, because she never gave up. But the others aren't talked about. But I remember what they did, and other people here remember what they did. And I think the way we have a measure of justice, or how we change things, is we involve ourselves in other people's fights for justice. So, you know, at this time, there's a mother in Belfast fighting to find out what happened to her boy who was found dead, Noah Donahue, 14 years of age at the time. The British state, the British government has said she can have an inquest, but they redact all the names, all the information, just like they did with so much of Hillsborough and other things. So the point I'm making is people like that need support. Sadly, a lot of people know what it's like to lose their child, that pain. If we can do anything to help towards alleviating that. Grenfell, and I know Hillsborough law would impact on all of those things, but what I'm saying is, do not rely on it, do not rely on politicians. In my book, they all have their own agenda, their own careers, and I'm sorry to say, but I believe their own interests override everything else. Why aren't they shouting out about Palestine? They're sitting there, so-called socialists, saying nothing. And for me, the crucial thing is, we don't rely on them. We do our own thing. We get out there, we go, yeah, we got this far with Hillsborough because we didn't always obey rules, how we got information, how we got bits of paper, etc. And we'll do that for other people. We'll give them our help, our expertise, and that's how you get justice. You show you're the better person, never stoop to their level. And, you know, I'll end on this, but do you really, not only do you really think you'll get it, but would you really want so-called justice off a corrupt government? I wouldn't want it, not worth the paper it's written on. The government's corrupt, they'll never give you anything. Anything you want, you got to fight for, and you know, if there's like laws that are unfair, then you got to break them. That's the only way you change things, and I will, you know, I'll go to my grave breaking laws if I have to get justice and truth for people. So we're going to read out the names now, and I'm proud to say that we have a friend over from Derry who is part of the Bloody Sunday committee, who has agreed to read some names out for us, and they're people who suffered an injustice and still suffer it even longer than us. So it's so important that people come together, fight together, and just think, you know, please open your mouth and speak out about Palestine. What a better way to remember those who lost their lives so tragically at Hillsborough than to speak out for another injustice. That is the best legacy you could give Hillsborough victims. Thank you.
John Alfred Anderson, Colin Mark Ashcroft, James Gary Aspinall, Kester Roger Marcus Ball, Gerard Bernard Patrick Barron, Simon Bell, Barry Sidney Bennett, David John Benson, David William Bertle, Tony Bland,
Paul David Brady, Andrew Mark Brooks, Carl Brown, David Stephen Brown, Henry Thomas Burke, Peter Andrew Burkett, Paul William Carlyle, Raymond Thomas Chapman, Gary Christopher Church, Joseph Clark, Paul Clark, Gary Collins, Stephen Paul Copock, Tracy Elizabeth Cox, James Philip Delaney, Andrew Stanley Devine, Christopher Barry Devonside, Christopher Edwards, Vincent Michael Fitzsimmons,
Thomas Stephen Fox, John Paul Gillooly, Barry Glover, Ian Thomas Glover, Derek George Godwin, Roy Harry Hamilton, Philip Hammond, Eric Hankin, Gary Harrison, Peter Andrew Harrison and Stephen Francis Harrison.
David Hawley, James Robert Hennessy, Paul Anthony Hewitson, Carl Darren Hewitt, Nicholas Michael Hewitt, Sarah Louise Hicks, Victoria Jane Hicks, Gordon Rodney Horn, Arthur Horrocks.
Thomas Anthony Howard, Thomas Howard, Eric George Hughes, Alan Johnson, Christine Ann Jones, Gary Philip Jones, Richard Jones, Nicholas Peter Jones, Anthony Peter Kelly, Michael David Kelly.
Carl David Lewis, David William Mather, Brian Christopher Matthews, Francis Joseph McAllister, John McBrien, Marion Hazel McCabe, Joseph Daniel McCarthy, Peter MacDonald, Alan McGlone, Keith McGrath.
Paul Brian Murray, Lee Nichol, Stephen Francis O'Neill, Jonathan Owens, William Roy Pemberton, Carl William Rimmer, David George Rimmer, Graham John Roberts, Stephen Joseph Robinson, Henry Charles Rogers.
Colin Andrew Hugh William Sefton, Inga Shaw, Paula Ann Smith, Adam Edward Spirit, Philip John Steele, David Leonard Thomas, Patrick John Thompson, Peter Rubin Thompson, Stuart Paul William Thompson, Peter Francis Tootle.
Christopher James Trainer, Martin Kevin Trainer, Kevin Tyrrell, Colin Wafer, Ian David Whelan, Martin Kenneth Wilde, Kevin Daniel Williams, Graham John Wright.
Thank you. Thank you to all those reading out the names, some of whom lost family at Hillsborough. We'll now stand in silence and observe that minute's silence. Thank you. Thank you. As always, look after yourselves. Try and get through this day as best you can. I know it's not easy, and for some it really is such a difficult day. As I said before, if you want to hang around, and you know there's enough places around here, you're welcome in Reds, you're welcome in the Lion, you're welcome in the Ship and Mitre. It's just people, I know some people travel from out of town and they're on their own, but they'll be made welcome wherever they go. So thank you very much. Thanks.